Hello and welcome to Get Started. I'm Merlin, and in this video we're going to take our Necrons up to another new level as I show you how to get an energy glow effect on Necron close combat weapons. If you haven't already, go back to video 1 and paint your Necron Scorpec Destroyers up to the same level we painted our warriors. Then I'll show you how to paint our terrain. We're going to be using a lot of contrast paint, so I suggest you use Wraithbone Spray. This is ideal for the contrast paints, especially the light ones that we're going to be using. Don't forget to spray outdoors in dry conditions, dust-free, and to wear face coverings so you don't get affected by the fumes. So, if you're ready, I'll see you at the paint desk. So, here we are ready with our Scorpec Destroyer. As you can see, I've got him up to battle ready, using the same methods I used on my Necron warriors. As you can see, I've painted certain areas of the combat weapons black. These are just to show different parts of the armour on the Necron Scorpec Destroyers. So the first colour we're going to need for our energy effect is Corax White. So give your paint a good shake, and for control we'll use our medium layer brush. I'll get some of the paint onto our palette like so. As this is a base paint, it's fairly thick, so we'll run it down with a little bit of water. When you're ready, we want to paint this over the actual energy blade of our Scorpec Destroyer's close combat weapons. If we can paint in one fluid motion, the all the better, so it saves on the streaks. For areas around the armour, you'll just have to take your time. Trying to avoid the black that's already painted. Also, don't forget to try and run it into the recesses there. You want to do a good 3 coats of Corax White over our Necron weapons before we move on to our next colour. So we've got 3 layers of white down on our blades, and I've also picked out all the other areas that will require the Tesseract glow later on. So next up we need to make our own thin wash, and to do that we're going to need Contrast Medium and Warpstone Glow. If you haven't got Contrast Medium, Lamy Medium will work just as well. So we'll get the Warpstone Glow shook up and opened, and the same with the Contrast Medium. So again, we'll use our medium layer brush so we can control what we're using. And we want to get 4 brushes, 2, 3, and that's about 4 pretty much already there, onto our palette. Give our brush a wash off and a dry before we add 1 brushful of the Warpstone Glow and mix it into our medium. So we've got a lovely translucent green. So I'll wash our brush off again just so we haven't got too much on there. And we need to get a good coat on our blades. So we want to try and do, again like we did with the white, a fluid motion. So we want to start roughly about halfway on the outer side of the blade. So here, dragging all the way up to the top like so. Then do the same on the inside edge of the blade. So we'll start around halfway, and we'll bring the paint all the way down to the bottom like so. Due to the thin consistency of the paint, it shouldn't take too long for your first layer to dry. Once it has, we want to add a second layer. This time we don't want to start as far down, so we'll start roughly here, about 3/4 up, and bringing our paint all the way up to the top of our blade like so. And again down here. You'll want to repeat this about 3 to 4 times till you've got a good strong transition from the light to the dark. There we go. We've done 4 layers of the Warpstone Glow with contrast medium mix. And as you can see, we've got a nice transition where the blade fades from the white up to a stronger green. But we're not going to leave it there. We're going to do the same again, but this time we're going to use Caliban green instead of Warpstone Glow. So we'll get 1, 2, 3, 4 brushfuls of the contrast medium, and 1 good dollop of Caliban green, and mix the two together. Then I'll give our brush a quick wash. And now we're going to apply this, but this time we're not going to do it all the way down. This time instead we're going to start about halfway along the blade, so we're just covering the top third or so. So 1 fluid motion like this, as most of your paint will be left where your final stroke is done up at the top. So over here we'll do it roughly halfway all the way down to the bottom of the blade like so. And just before, we want to do about 2, 3, maybe 4 layers, but reducing the coveraged area each time, so we still got that Warpstone Glow showing through. With our Caliban green dry, we can now see we got a lovely transition from pure white to a medium green to a dark green. But we have one last step left to do. That's to apply Tesseract Glow to the whole of the blade. We don't want to just apply this all over. We want to do it in the same method as we did with the green fading. But this time we want to start. Let's get some of the Tesseract Glow on my palette. This time around we want to start on the dark green so that we leave most of the paint at the bottom where the white is. So 1 fluid motion like so. And that should help tie all the colours together. And once it dries, we'll have a lovely fading energy effect. There we go, with the Tesseract Glow dry, our Necron energy weapons are finished. As you can see, we got that lovely fading gradient from dark at the top down to the light here, and the reverse on the inside. I've also painted all the other details of Tesseract Glow and the Ankh on the chest with Nazdrag yellow. So with that, our Scorpec Destroyers are finished. Also, in a later video, I'll be showing you some extra tips on how to bring them up to an even better level. And we're ready to move on to our pipes. Here we have our pipeline all sprayed with Wraithbone. So we've got good coverage luckily, so we don't need to touch up any areas. But if you have got any areas you've missed, just use a pot of Wraithbone and cover them up before we move on. So the first paint we'll want is Skeleton Horde. This will be a little strong going on by itself, so we'll thin it down with a little contrast medium. Because we've got a lot of area to cover, we'll use our shade brush for this. So we'll get two good brushfuls of medium on my palette. Brush a wash. I want one brushful of the Skeleton Horde. Just mix them together, which you can't see. There we go. Now we can apply this all over our pipe. I suggest painting one half at a time so that you can let one side dry before you move on and paint the other side. But we want to cover everything, so just give it a good coat all over, working it into the recesses and around all that detail. So with our pipe dry, we're now ready to move on to the next stage. And for that, we're going to give a recess shade to the upper areas with Corax Earthshade. This will give the emphasis that there has been natural weathering occurring on the pipes. So we'll use our medium layer brush, as it's got a nice thin point. And we'll use our palette just so we're not overloading the brush. And what we want to do is drop the Corax Earthshade into the recesses here, around the rivets and the bolts, just so we get the appearance of dirt and grime building up over time. Just take your time going around the entirety of your model. If you make any mistakes, just touch up with some Wraithbone and Skeleton Horde. Another little thing you might want to do is to add some streaks running down the side, like so. They'll give the effect of water running down the side and pull it up on top of flat areas like that and around any pipes at the sides. There we go, our Corax Earthshade has dried and we can now see we've got a much more weathered looking set of pipes. So the next colour we're going to need is Grey Sear. If you don't have Grey Sear but you have Dawnstone, this will work just as well. But we're going to use this paint to pick out all the smaller details, such as the pipes, any energy sources, screens, etc. So this is a pretty thin paint anyway, but we're still going to get some on our palette and a tiny touch of water just to help smooth it out. And onto our pipes. So like I said, the areas we're going to look to pick out are these small pipes just here. Give them 1 to 2 coats of Grey Sear. And in the alcove here we've got some grates and a screen. We'll give them coat of grey sear. We've got a set of gauges and another small pipe over here. And finally on this side we've got a little heat vent and the pipes leading into it. We'll just pick those out with grey sear. And all these pipes on the inside here. Finally, we want to paint any end grates like this with grey sear, ready for our contrast paints. Just let your first coat dry, and you might need to apply a second one. But hopefully, if like me you haven't painted too much paints on the area, you should be able to get away with just the one coat. With our grey sear now dry, we can start picking out all our contrast colours. The first colour we need is Basilicanum Grey. This is going to go onto the control panels, the vents, and some of the small pipes. Give your pot a good mix, and we'll use our small layer as we're dealing with fine details. So, the first area we're going to cover is this little grate here. Just give that a good coat of Basilicanum Grey. All the control panels in this alcove. And we'll do the thin wires coming down to the power box. Then on the other side we got our dials and this alcove full of screens, boxes and vents. There we go, Basilicanum Grey has dried, and I've put a second coat on the inside there to show some extra depth. Next we're going to take Nasdrag Yellow, and we're going to put this on a couple of places. So first we're going to paint this rather thick pipe here to make it look a little golden. Just apply the Nasdrag Yellow over the top of the grey sear. And we get a nice golden effect. Also going to apply it on any of these nameplates that are scattered around the models. And we're going to put it over the top of this panel just there, just to give it a little bit of different coloration. Next we're going to take Blood Angel's Red, and we're going to apply this to all the thinner pipes and any switches. So, get a small amount of the Blood Angel's Red on our brush, and we're just going to apply it over all these thinner pipes. A little bit more paint, I think. And over here we've got a couple of switches. We've got a shut-off valve here, and a couple of switches just there. With the Blood Angel's Red dry, we've just got 3 colours left to apply. First we're going to use Warpstone Glow and apply this to any screens as well as a few buttons. So we'll just get a small amount mixed up on our palette, not much. Because on this particular pipe we've only got the one damaged screen there. There's a little button down here to pick out as well. You can always put a shade of Basilicanum Grey over that to help show the damage. Next we want Corax White, and this is going to go over the Cog Mechanicums. So we've only got a couple on here, so again you just want a small amount of the Corax White, a little bit of water, and we just need to paint these little cog symbols here. If we go all over with the white, we can then layer over the black halves afterwards. And finally we want Corvus Black, just to pick out those cog symbols. Again, we'll just get a small amount on our palette, touch of water, then we can pick them out. So the half we need to paint is the left half of the cog and the right half of the skull. Once you're done, we're finished. Like so. You can always give it a thinned over wash with some silicone grey just to add a little bit of extra depth to it. Whether you want to or not is entirely up to you. But with that done, our pipes are finished. There we have it. Using the tips in this video, you can get all your pipes painted, as well as painting all the different energy blades on our Necron Scorpion destroyers. You'll notice we didn't paint all the sections of pipe. We only need the 3 long sections and 1 damage section for our first terrain mission. As such, we'll be painting up some of these sections in later videos. We'll also be returning to these models in future videos, as we'll be adding some extra details to them. It's time then to face the Agents of Annihilation as we learn about AP value of weapons, damage characteristics, and how models interact with terrain. I've been Merlin, this has been Get Started. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.